Session we'll be discussing the ethics of technology transfer. What do we mean by ethics? Simply, we mean guiding principles, agreed guiding principles when it comes to technology transfer. Because we have to state clearly that while there are numerous potential benefits of transferring technology, both for the service providers and for the users, there are also a good number of ethical issues. So, what we're going to do in this session is to raise these issues and then to emphasize the need for all stakeholders involved in both technology incubation and transfer to pay careful attention to them. For this class, we're going to focus on four major ethics: the autonomy, the beneficence, the non-maleficence, and justice. Autonomy speaks of the notion of deliberated self-rule. That's the ability of the individual to make choices. Beneficence is the principle of working for the benefit of the individual. Non-maleficence is the principle of working in such a way as not to cause harm to an individual, while justice relates to a moral obligation to act on a fair adjudication between conflicting claims. Now, these principles provide a framework which has been used to discuss the ethical issues associated with the use of technologies with various categories of people. The framework is equally useful for consideration for the ethical issues around transfer of agricultural technology. Let's start with autonomy. Now, autonomy relates to self governance or personal control. The main aim of implementing technology transfer is the promotion of increased independence. Because we said that the extension is just coming in to assist the farm families, give them an aid, show them the way to help themselves. That extension is not coming in to hijack the whole process, but just to lead the way. So, in doing this, we must emphasize the need for independence. It's very, very important. For instance, independence can be one consequence of the use of smart home technology if the presence of the staff is reduced. One of the most challenging ethical issues in the case of intended beneficiaries of technology is that of consent. This relates directly to the moral principle of respect of autonomy, which accordingly has two major aspects. One is the non subjection of autonomous actions to controlling constraints by others. And then two, respectful treatments in disclosing information, probing for and ensuring understanding and voluntariness and fostering autonomous decision making. Let's take, for instance, when you are working with vulnerable groups, especially women and children, it's important that we secure their consent. Even when working with farmers, given the level of their literacy, especially those in the rural areas, their consent must be clearly secured in everything that we are doing. We shouldn't impose we shouldn't impose our approaches on them. Let's look at the idea of response bias as we discuss autonomy. Research show that rural farmers are often the targets of agricultural technology and they have great difficulty to questions concerning abstract matters and are more prone than the general population to response bias. One example of response bias is what we call acquiescence. Acquiescence is the tendency to respond positively, irrespective of the question being asked. Another example is recency, which is the tendency to select the last of two possible response options. For instance, if asked whether they want manure or fertilizer, a person might say fertilizer. However, if the question is reversed. Do you want fertilizer or manure? The person may say manure. So high level of acquiescence among illiterate farmers are frequently reported. People with low level of literacy may say yes to many yes or no questions in order to be agreeable, and may say no to questions that mention social undesirable behaviors to deny any association with these taboos. Therefore, the answers provided by people should not necessarily be taken at face value. There is need to sort those responses. It's very important. Just because someone says they have understood what has been said might not be enough. It might be better to ask some simple questions relating to what has been described so that it can be established if the person genuinely understands. Let's discuss the next issue also under autonomy as we discuss the issue of coercion. That most extension workers want the best of the farmers they serve and would be outraged at the idea of forcing farmers to do anything against their will. However, coercion can be quite subtle and unintentional. For example, where there is a new and exciting technology with potential for enhancing quality of life for farm families, it is easy for policymakers, service providers, and frontline extension workers to become enthused or even evangelical about the prospects of what might be achievable. However, I want to say that if the enthusiasm comes across too strongly during the process of gaining consent, there is a distinct possibility that the farmers might feel pressurized to consent. Again, there is research evidence which suggests that the reasons why people are quenched include a wish to give socially desirable response, especially if the person asking the question is perceived as being of a higher status than the respondent. Conversely, farmers might be coerced into saying no to a new technology when it may be in their best interest to agree to use it. For example, farm laborers may be fearful of the introduction of new technology and how it will influence their work, and there may be a temptation to pass on perceived fears to service providers. When we discuss the next issue, the idea of beneficence, it's about doing our best for those whom we support. Here, it's about the farmers. Improved technology has the potential to provide people in a number of ways. For instance, simply taking into consideration the fact that a farm household may need computer and internet access and then supporting residents to use it can generate an array of positive outcome. That is very, very possible. That is very, very possible. And then while we do that, we must also make every effort to ensure that the farmers get the optimal benefit from whatever technology that we are introducing to them. Look at non-malfeasance. In discussing non-malfeasance, it's a fundamental bioethical principle of not causing harm as a result of an intervention. In the medical sector, non-malfeasance is the sister to beneficence and is often considered as an inseparable pillar of ethics. Non-malfeasance states that a medical practitioner has the duty to do no harm or allow harm to be caused to a patient through neglect. It is an important obligation in morality. There are a number of areas where a new technology has the potential to cause harm, some more serious than others. So we will need to also be conscious of such areas. There are areas where a new technology may be considered as being stigmatizing. A simple definition of stigma is that it is a sign of social unacceptability because of the shame or disgrace attached to something regarded as socially unacceptable. Stigma arises as a product of four social processes. First, people distinguish and label human differences. Secondly, dominant cultural beliefs link labeled people to undesirable characteristics and negative stereotypes. Then, in the third social process, labeled people are placed in distinct categories to accomplish some degree of separation of us and them. So, these are challenges that come with stigma, and we must ensure that in our transfer technology, individuals are not stigmatized. Then, the last but not the least is justice. In discussing justice, is the condition of being morally correct or fair. It is one of the most important moral and political concepts. Justice is partly about respecting the needs and opinions of the individuals, ensuring their well being, and keeping them informed. We have discussed these variables earlier on in this note. Justice is also about fairness, and in this respect, it extends beyond individual. Thank you so much for your time.